The sprawling Montecito estate exuded an air of stifling calm on this hazy spring evening. Hushed birdsong and the soothing trickle of a courtyard fountain provided the only faint soundtrack beyond the occasional distant whir of gardening crews tending to the impeccably manicured grounds. Inside the Mediterranean-style villa's lavishly appointed study, however, an undercurrent of tension was palpable. Meghan Markle paced the plush Persian carpets in a state of restive, anxious energy. Her usually radiant features were taut with consternation, eyes narrowed to inscrutable emerald slits of focus. Her husband, Prince Harry, watched her fretful movements with a concerned furrow knitting his brow. He'd grown accustomed to her periods of heightened perturbation over the years, but seldom had she appeared quite so disconcerted. "I'm telling you, he's just lashing out from a place of bitterness and desperation," Harry tried again in a tone of careful reassurance. "You mustn't lose sleep fretting over the idle threats of such a sad, lonely little man." Meghan seemed to consider his soothing words for a beat before shaking her head adamantly. A lock of her chestnut tresses slipped loose from its tight chignon to brush against her flushed cheek. "You simply don't understand the depths Trevor is capable of stooping to," she said, a tremulous undercurrent of emotion fraying her typically measured vocal cadence. "As my former husband, he has knowledge. Revelations about my life before you that could turn the whole world even further against me if exposed." Harry frowned, clearly not following the cryptic line of thought. Abandoning her pacing, Meghan turned to face him fully. Her expression was fraught with rare vulnerability. "Trevor knows things about my past indiscretions," she elaborated with obvious difficulty. "Things that could completely derail the entire narrative I've so carefully reconstructed about who I am." The crease in Harry's brow deepened as realization seemed to dawn across his features. Meghan's eyes took on a pleading, almost fearful aspect as she searched his face. "You must believe me when I say these free-spirited exploits only occurred during a short but deeply misguided period of my young adult life," she pressed on. "And were almost exclusively limited to before my full commitment to the firm and life of service alongside you." Now it was Harry's turn to look distinctly unsettled as the implications coalesced in his mind's eye. His mouth worked wordlessly for a few moments. "Meghan, are you saying there are illicit relations from your past that you've kept from me all this time?" he finally managed, voice strained. "Ones your embittered ex-husband is now attempting to leverage against us somehow?" She exhaled a shuddering breath and nodded once, seeming to brace herself for the fallout. Harry digested the squirm-inducing revelation for a long moment, features clouding as he processed the myriad unpleasant thoughts and scenarios it conjured. "I want you to be fully transparent with me on this, love," he said at last in a tone of careful neutrality. Just how prolific or damaging could these supposed indiscretions prove to be if dragged out into the harsh public light? Meghan swallowed hard, worrying her plump bottom lip between her teeth for a beat. "It's not so much a chronological or numeric concern," she said in a small voice. "More a matter of elevated profiles and public stature of the other parties involved." Whatever lingering composure Harry clung to seemed to wilt at her vague yet loaded implication. His face slackened with stunned disbelief. "You can't be serious," he managed weakly. "You're telling me you had clandestine affairs or flings with other high-profile celebrities?" In the heavy silence that ensued, Meghan's eyes took on a mournfully beseeching quality. Her lack of denial was answer enough for Harry. He wheeled away from her, dragging his hands through his hair as an audible exhalation of dismay slipped past his lips. Meghan seemed to fold in on herself slightly, shrinking into a smaller, more vulnerable posture as she watched her husband wrestle with the revelation. Not many, if that provides any consolation," she ventured meekly. "And nothing even remotely approaching an emotional infidelity to you, I swear it. Just stupid, hedonistic lapses in judgment back when fame and privilege were still so new and disorienting for me." She took a tentative step towards Harry's rigidly tense back. "You simply must believe me when I tell you how deeply I regret those indiscretions now, my love. Especially in light of how they could potentially jeopardize everything we've sacrificed to build together if Trevor makes good on his threats to expose them publicly." A long, ponderous pause stretched out as Harry appeared locked in an internal war, struggling to process and contextualize this uncomfortable glimpse into his wife's past transgressions. I need some time, Meghan, he said in a voice made husky with emotion after an eternity of silence. This is all decidedly too much to fully digest or immediately make my peace with, understandably. His shoulders heaved with a bone-deep sigh before he turned to face her again, features carved from stone. No matter my own personal dismay at the implications, we must take stock of the situation unfolding with Trevor and formulate a plan to robustly counter any attempt at exploiting this ugliness for his gain. Meghan gave a solemn nod, looking as though she wanted nothing more than to go to him but holding herself in check. Harry's eyes searched her own inscrutably for a beat before he seemed to rally himself. We fight this slimy smear campaign against everything we've built head-on, he stated with a newfound resolve taking root in his voice. No more passively allowing others to control the narrative around us going forward. The gauntlet has been thrown, and we meet it without flinching. He crossed the room in 2 strides and gripped Meghan by the shoulders, staring down at her with an impassioned intensity that made her breath hitch. Do you understand me, Meghan? He said in a low, fervent tone thick with nascent determination. Whatever seedy skeletons your ex presumes to parade before the world, we rise above them completely. As we always have before those who sought to impugn and demean us. Yes, of course I understand, she managed in a husky whisper, utterly transfixed by the simmering conviction radiating off her husband in waves. I will face this with you on an unwavering united front, I swear it. Harry regarded her for another loaded beat, then dipped his head in a single resolute nod before leaning down to capture her lips in a searing, possessive kiss. Meghan returned his ardor feverishly, winding her lithe arms around his neck and allowing the fears of the oncoming storm to melt away into the heady undertow of mutual steely defiance. If Trevor chose to broadcast her most lurid secrets to the world, she vowed silently as she lost herself in Harry's impassioned embrace, she would face whatever fallout rained down without faltering or compromise. For nothing and no one could ever be permitted to sabotage all they had sacrificed and endured to secure their renegade fairy tale. Not even the vengeful specter of a former life left behind.